Folks, Greg Sherman here, aka Mr. Bowtie 1982 here on Twitter. We're ready to preview the 6 girls basketball state championship games that'll be taking place this week at the Alamodome. It won't be state finals Saturday like we're used to, but 3 on Wednesday, 3 on Thursday. And I'm joined once again by the legendary head coach Joe Lombard, 42 years coaching, 19 state championships between Nazareth and Canyon. He's retired, though. Not really, because Joe Canyon comes in to play the 4A state championship game. So a chance for Canyon to add yet another one to their arsenal, as is Nazareth. And Joe, again, it won't be like we see on state finals Saturday, but we're at least going to get a chance to play, and we'll have 6 teams that will take state championships home with them.
Yeah, Greg, I was looking at the matchups just a little while ago, and I tell you what, it's hard to pick. These are going to be 6 great games, it looks to me like on paper, and very evenly matched. You have some contrasts in styles, and you probably have some favorites, but I think every game is potentially a great game. So I think the fans will really enjoy if they get to view these games, whether it's in person or streaming, or I don't know if there's anything on TV maybe this year, but there is some great matchups, and I think it makes for a great state tournament. And like you said, Greg, it's different with the semifinals not being there the day before. But anyway, I know all the coaches involved are grateful they're getting to play, and it's been a good year. It's been a different year, but it's been a good year. So anyway, thanks for having me, and look forward to talking about some of these teams a little bit. And like I said, it's going to be a great state tournament.
Yeah, it's really interesting how great these matchups are. We're going to go through them in the order in which the state finals will be played, which is actually the way the semifinals usually are: 1, 3, 5, and then 2, 4, 6. If you're not familiar with the matchups, if you're watching us at home, the 1A final Wednesday morning will be Dodd City against Nazareth. 3A is Brownfield against Fairfield. Thursday night's the 5A final between Cedar Park and Frisco Liberty. Thursday, we'll have 2, 4, 6 with Lipan versus Martin's Mill, Hardin-Jefferson versus Canyon, and Cypress Creek versus DeSoto. And Joe, before we get into the matchups in particular, what's really interesting to note is of the 12 teams that are playing in the finals, 10 of the 12 have been in at least one final since the tournament moved to San Antonio starting in 2015. And that's really kind of unusual, Joe, because we thought there was going to be a lot of parity this year, and we get mostly teams that are still here. Obviously, you were at the Canyon game when they narrowly beat Dallas Pinkston. I was at Frisco Liberty and Lubbock Cooper in the 5As. What did you notice across the state in any of these semifinals? Maybe just a global thought or two.
Well, you had some games that were not so close, but you had some great games, like the one we were involved in, and the Lubbock Cooper and Frisco, like you mentioned. But I think it was a great semifinal round. However, now you really have it put together. I think the perfect scenario, and so I think you got great teams coming out of the semifinal round, and it should be a great finals matchup. But I know those teams that won are grateful they won, and those teams that lost, the heartache, I've been there. I know that feeling, and it's always tough to lose your last game of the season. And but that's the nature of athletics, and of course basketball. And it can be won on a last-second shot. It can be won on a referee's call. It can be won on anything. And so, I think the girls' game continues to get better. There's more and more teams that can beat other teams. I may have mentioned this back earlier, but when I first started coaching, and that was a long time ago, there would be a handful of teams in each classification that had a chance for state championship. But now in every classification, other than maybe Class A, I think I've talked about that, and just about anything else, there's close to 10 teams probably that could win the thing when the playoffs start, or you think they have a chance to win it. So there is more parity, but you still have those traditional schools, and it's kind of neat to see the tradition to be able to continue as time marches on and styles change a little bit, but you still see those traditional teams hanging in there. So I like that.
Yeah, and tradition will be reigning as we start in 1A with Nazareth taking on Dodd City. Nazareth trying to win number 25. Of course, you won a few of those before Eric Schilling took over. They made their 30th appearance in the state semifinals. They defeated their opponent in the semifinals, that being Westbrook, while Dodd City didn't have much trouble with Natchez. Natchez did win a volleyball state championship this year. And it's kind of interesting that we both thought that very likely could happen. And this is turning into the old Buffalo Bills, Dallas Cowboys, or Pittsburgh Steelers, Dallas Cowboys championship games, as they're once again in it. Dodd City, boy, you kind of feel for them because they are 5-0 lifetime in the semifinals, but they are 0-4 in the state championship game. They've lost to Nazareth every time. They've put up 3 really good quarters in each of those finals, but then they'll have one clunker somewhere. With one of the quarters, one time they were outscored 16-2 in the second quarter in one of those finals losses a few years ago. And Joe, the biggest question is, how does Dodd City finally get over the hump, and how do they not get it in their head about the constant losses to Nazareth?
Yeah, well, hey, it's a new year, and they're going to break through sooner or later. They've got a great program going at Dodd City, and year in and year out, they're in the mix. And so again, here they are with an opportunity, and I think they've got a great shot. I mean, it's you'd have to pick Nazareth just because of they dominated Class A, but however, Dodd City's going to break through sometime or later. And so the question is, can they do it this year? And I haven't seen them play, but it sounds like they've got the talent. They've beaten some pretty good teams on their schedule. I think they're good enough to do it. But I've also seen Nazareth, and they're definitely good, like always. And you'll have to go play well against a team like Nazareth. They're not going to beat themselves, so you'll have to play well. And so Dodd City just got to, take a fresh approach and say, this is a chance. This is our year. This is a great opportunity for us. We're undefeated, and this is our year. So let the game begin. It's going to be a great one. So we're going to start off with a great 1A game that's going to be as good as any of them.
Yeah, and Dodd City, to get there, they've blown out all 5 of their opponents to get to the finals. 3 times they held their opponent to exactly 20 points. I'm going to take a wild stab and say they will not hold Nazareth to 20 points. But for Nazareth, they come in 27-4. They lost to Amarillo. Of course, that's a 5A school. No one's ever going to take shame in that. Nazareth lost by 44 to Canyon. Again, no one's ever going to take shame in that. They lost to 6A Wolfforth Friendship. So those are teams that are obviously much bigger. They also lost to Lipan, who's playing in the 2A finals. They really haven't been tested too deep in the playoffs, winning all 5 of their games by double figures. And you look at some of the names on their side, you've got the Emma Clayman, who I believe has an MVP award earlier in her career, Mary Gerber, of course, the Gerber family, Harley Gerber. And it's really kind of one of those where you look at these programs and you may not necessarily know the players by their first name, but you look at the last names of some of these players. Dodd City has 3 seniors, Danny Backus, Braylee Cohen, and Journey Hilliard, but you recognize the last names and based on how those families really work together.
Yeah. Those Gerber kids, I coached their dads when I was at Nazareth. I coached both girls and boys, and so I know the families real well. And there's great DNA running through and through with those Gerbers. Yeah, they've got a good team. They're just solid. They've got good shooters, and like I said, Dodd City's going to have to play well, but maybe it looks to me like they've played well all year. And I think Dodd City's good enough. They just need to have that game where they, like I said, break through and gain confidence throughout the game. And it should be a dandy. I think it could go either way. I really do.
Moving on to Class 3A, this will be the Wednesday afternoon game. It'll be a Mrs. Fields game, so to speak, as Brownfield will take on the defending 4A champion Fairfield. This will be in Class 3A. And Joe, again, this is a matchup that some of us predicted that you thought would happen. Of course, Brownfield having to go through a really, really difficult Lubbock area. They had a 3-point win over Jimmy Avery and Ponder in the semis, and Jimmy told me how they felt like it was so close. It came down to 1 or 2 possessions. As for Fairfield, not too much of trouble for them getting by Bishop out of the Corpus Christi area. And Joe, this one again is going to be very intriguing because Brownfield is one of 2 teams that has not been to the finals since it moved to San Antonio. And Fairfield last year was not really thought of as having much of a chance of winning the state championship when they were in 4A, but they came back to beat Argyle. And this one will be another fantastic state championship game.
Great matchup. Brownfield has come from a loaded Region 1. I mean, I think they've had 5 close games. I mean, within 3 points, 2 or 3 points. And they've won all of those games. And so there's something there that's allowing them to do that. And then you question, well, are they going to, is it on the 6th game that they're not going to be able to win or not? But they came through a loaded region. Out of all the classifications, I'm not sure that 3A Region 1 does not have the most quality teams. And so hats off to Brownfield. They had a great run. And for Fairfield, I'm impressed with Fairfield. Just last year winning that state championship and in 4A and then dropping down. Now Brownfield's played all these close games and Fairfield has not. So that can be a factor, but it may not be. I mean, it's just hard to tell. But Brownfield, it's got a bunch of really good guards. And I think Fairfield has a little mix of guards and post players. Great matchup. It's going to come down to the wire. I think Brownfield is going to be in their 6th game in a row where it's going to be inside of 5 points. And so pick them, man. I'm telling you, this is tough this year. Brownfield came from the toughest region, but Fairfield was the defending state champion in a higher classification. So how do you pick against them? So awesome game to watch. Hope I get to see all these other games because they're going to be dandies. And Region 1, it's hard for me to pick against Region 1, but Fairfield, they got something going there right now with a bunch of kids that they have. So maybe coming in, they're the favorite, but gosh, Greg, it can go either way.
Yeah, you look at Brownfield's playoff results. 2nd round beat Idalou by 2. 2nd round beat Childers by 2. 4th round beat Peaster by 7. Then you get to that was the 4th round, and then the quarterfinals. They beat Shallowater, who some people thought was the favorite to get all the way to San Antonio. Beat them by 5. Then beat Ponder by 3 in the state semifinals. Their only loss is to Amarillo High. Again, Amarillo High playing all those tough teams out of the Lubbock area. Amarillo losing to Canutillo in the 5A 2nd round. As for Fairfield, none of their games in the playoffs have been close. Cameron Yo, Whitney, West, Huntington, Lexington, and Bishop. Their 2 losses on the season, 27-2. One is to another school that starts with the word Brown. That's Brownsboro, spit that out. Their other loss was to Brian Rutter. So their matchups a little bit different, but you mentioned how this region, battle region versus region, really the 2 best regions in Class 3A. Fairfield came from behind to beat Amarillo in overtime. This is their 2nd finals appearance, so they're looking to make it 2 in a row. Brownfield hasn't been here since 1988. You talk about the guard play, and of course, one name comes to mind, and that would be the legendary Cheryl Swoops on that 88.
Yeah, she was a pretty good player. We got to play against Cheryl twice when she was in high school. And I think she, if not the best women's player ever, she is right there in the top 5 best all-time female players in the United States. And so she came out of Brownfield, Texas. I mean, and became a legend in the West Texas with leading Texas Tech to a national championship. So they go back. It's been a while since they've really been in the mix. And so I know the town of Brownfield's really excited right now.
Yeah, and you think about Fairfield going through their roster. McKenna Bracken, she's only a sophomore. She did something pretty good as a freshman last year in that title match. She hit the tying basket as time expired to force overtime, and eventually Fairfield made just enough free throws down the stretch. And it's interesting, Joe, where maybe we haven't seen all these teams in person, but you look at the rosters and you say, oh, this player did this last year and this player did that. And it just makes things so amazing because of how there's so few seniors on these two teams combined.
Yeah, it is amazing, and I think just a great matchup. You talk about that sophomore kid from Fairfield and then Brownfield. I don't know I think they start 5 underclassmen. So, but they gained a lot of experience a year ago, and then this year it's paying off for them. So they're really good. It's hard to bet against either team. Brownfield in those close games has been unreal. That's just, as you read those off, that's amazing. They've won all that many close games in a row. That's just incredible because you have to have some good breaks along the way. And so have they run out of those good breaks, or there's still one more in them?
Briefly, let me ask you this.
Watch.
Sorry, Joe. Let me ask you this briefly. Who is favored in this one as far as the team that has played all these close games that is won by 1 or 2 possessions, or the team that's blown everybody out? Which?
Well, that's a good question, and it could be the team that blows everybody out may just be way better than everybody else. But I like the team that's played some close games. Once you start playing in some close games, I think that gets you battle tested for games on down the road. So I really think that's to Brownfield's advantage. If the game's going to be close on Wednesday, I think that's their advantage. And if Fairfield's just better than them, then gosh, I can't see them being too much better though. I think it's going to be a close game.
The Wednesday night matchup will be Cedar Park taking on Frisco Liberty. Cedar Park is the other of the 2 teams that has not been to the finals since it moved to the Alamodome. In fact, Cedar Park is the only team of the 12 that has never played in the finals, but they are a team that went through the loaded Region 3 over the years, moved over to Region 4 this year with San Antonio being a little bit down, and they ran through everybody and had a great second half against Beaumont United, who was undefeated, turning a 5-point close game into a blowout victory. Frisco Liberty beat Lubbock Cooper in a game that I had a chance to attend at St. Mary's here in San Antonio on Saturday. A game that was back and forth, came down to one of those close no foul calls, but Jazzy Owens Barnett with a great block in the final seconds. And Frisco Liberty, the team that loves to play that slow, deliberate pace, and talking to one of their other players, Ziemkowicz, I hope I'm saying her name right, Lily Ziemkowicz, she said that we don't like to slow it down or go low scoring on purpose. We just wait until we get the shot that we like. And Joe, we've seen Frisco Liberty several times in person, the defending 5A champions. And when you run a slow pace like that, but you run it well, oftentimes you can stymie your opponents, who oftentimes like to play that rush, so to speak.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Frisco Liberty, led by Coach Reedy, is the last 5 years or so has really been in the forefront of Class 5A. We played them back in 2016 and had a tough, low-scoring game with them in the state championship game. And then they've been there, gosh, seemed like they've made the state almost every year since then. They're difficult to play against because you have got to be able to switch gears, because it's going to be low scoring, and they just kind of make it that way. And shot selection is really important for Frisco Liberty, whereas maybe another team is trying to get more shots up and win that battle, most shots taken. So Liberty, though, with their style of play, it's going to be, probably it's going to be in the 30s, Greg, but who knows for sure. But just looking at all their opponents and the scores when they played Liberty, it's usually in the 30s. However, Cedar Park must be really good. They've been, I think, ranked at the top of 5A most of this year. And gosh, I saw where they beat a really good Georgetown pretty handily. And so And then, like you said, had a great win in the semifinals. So I'm just guessing Cedar Park's going to be really talented and very tough to beat. So, hey, you pick them. You have the defending state champion in Frisco Liberty, who's going to keep the score down, the possessions down. You have a little more higher octane offense probably in Cedar Park, who's been ranked #1, I think, most of the season. So do you go with the defending state champ, or do you go with the one that's currently hot? And I think it's another pick 'em. I mean, what do you prefer? And I could go either way and feel good about a pick, or kind of feel good about a pick, because I know the other one is really, really good in their own way. So Frisco Liberty's got it going as far as making teams play their style. And then Cedar Park's been kind of a dominant team this year in 5A.
By the way, before we break down further, Ross Reedy said he's a big fan of these little fireside chats that we have. So Ross really appreciated and got to see him on set. Hey, it's nice to know that we have fans. Well, they're all there to see you. No one's here to see me. Everybody wants to see.
No, I think it's the bow tie.
Joe, if you wear a bow tie, I think everybody will come out to see.
I should have worn one. Hey, maybe next year.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Frisco Liberty is 4-0 in the semifinals all time. Their games, just like with Brownfield and 3A, all mostly pretty close. 2-point win over McKinney North in the first round, blew out Carrollton Smith in the second round, 5-point win over Frisco Memorial in the third round, 19 points over North Forney in the fourth round, and then 39 points, enough to beat Wiley East and Lubbock Cooper in the quarterfinals and semifinals. 8 losses on the season, by far the most of any of the 12 teams that made the finals. But you look at their schedule, Ross Reedy mentioned how they love to schedule up. They have Jazzy Owens Barnett, who had the winning layup against Lubbock Cooper in the semifinals. I mentioned Lily Ziemkowitz. They brought back everybody except one player off of last year's team. So, Joe, that may be potentially the difference, where Cedar Park has never been to the finals, but Liberty brought just about everybody back, and they're going to be very comfortable at the Alamodome.
They are. That's going to be a tough team to beat, even though, like you said, they have 8 losses. They played a tough schedule, and I think playing a tough schedule really helps a coach figure out what you need to work on and what you got to do to be able to play with the best teams in the state. So Frisco did that early. And like I said, Cedar Park's just been up there all year long, and it has to be really, really good. So great game. Here we go again, man. Class 5A is going to be just like that 1A and 3A we talked about. You could go either way, and you have some traditional teams, and you have a little bit of a new team here at Cedar Park. So all I know is, Greg, the score is going to be low. Okay. Not sure who's going to win, but the score is going to be in the 30s. Maybe it's the first one that gets to 40 wins.
Yeah, and looking at Cedar Park's results, their only loss on the season at 26-1 was to Cibolo Steel. Way back at the start of the year, Steel split a 6A district title with Converse Judson. Most of their winning scores are well above that, not including 4 games that they won because of virus forfeits. They beat Georgetown with only scoring 39 in the regular season finale. They swept Georgetown, beat them 3 times this year, and they beat Georgetown 44-12 in the state quarterfinals. So it should be, needless to say, very interesting, Joe.
Oh, yeah. Great game. Great matchup. Again, just like a lot of these games, there's going to be some contrast in styles, and that makes it interesting for the fans and the coaches to watch. And I love watching. Like I said, I've seen Frisco play several times. I haven't seen Cedar Park, but they've got it going at Cedar Park this year. So I think it's just a tremendous matchup, and wouldn't surprise me either way if one team wins over the other. It's kind of like in that Lubbock Cooper game with Frisco. It's kind of who can make a play right there at the end of the game, make the right play. And so that's what I'm saying. It's a toss up. But first team to 40, mark my word, could win.
I'm going to hold you to that. And if you need one little odd quirk on Cedar Park, they're coached by Donnie Ott. The first game of the season, they beat Temple 68-22. Ott's brother, I believe, is the superintendent at Temple ISD, if I'm not mistaken. So assuming I'm correct, that probably made a very awkward Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner.
Yeah, you don't want to, there's still some bragging rights, even if one's coach and one's in administration. They don't like to lose to their brother. So, yeah, that's Thanksgiving maybe wasn't that happy. I don't know.
Moving on to the state finals on Thursday, the even classifications. We start with Class 2A, two teams that are very, very strong in Lipan and Martins Mill. Lipan in 1A for so long. Surprising to see only one state championship won because they kept running into Nazareth, and before that, Natchez, who went to the 1A quarterfinals this year, taking on Martins Mill, their fifth appearance to the state semifinals, their third finals appearance. They've won their two previous finals appearances. Joe, this is kind of an interesting matchup because these are two teams that are used to getting to the state finals in different classifications, albeit Lipan always running in Nazareth. And now we get these two teams we're used to seeing, and it'll be interesting to see if the different classes over the previous years affect how this one plays out.
Yeah, these are two teams that we've known about for a long time, through many years. They're always competitive, have great programs, and have had great programs for a long time. Lipan, Greg, this year, I picked Panhandle to win it all. So Lipan beat Panhandle in a close game the other day. And then before that, they upset. I thought it was an upset over Munster because I thought Munster really had a really solid team coming back. So Lipan is a pretty good team. Martins Mill, I think they kind of just got it going here late, maybe through district and then playoffs. They beat an undefeated Douglas team. And so they're on a little bit of a run themselves. And so, yeah, you got two teams, Lipan and Martins Mill, have been in the playoffs and made a run through the playoffs many times. And this is a great battle of two traditional powers. I've kind of become a believer in Lipan this year, just with their wins that they had. They beat Nazareth in a warm-up game, and like I said, beat Panhandle and Munster. So Lipan looks to me like they could be the favorite here, but again, it wouldn't surprise me. Martins Mill, I'm sure, is quality, and just like we've seen them have several good teams at the state tournament. They're well coached and very well represented with talent. So great matchup. People are going to love this tournament, but great matchup. But I give a slight edge to Lipan.
By the way, I need to correct myself. I was looking at the UIL's website versus their program that I had from last year. The website has different numbers. Lipan actually has been to the semifinals or beyond 9 times. Martins Mill 15 times. So I do not want to slow down Amber Branson and Tommy Cross's programs. My apologies for that. I guess it's one of those where when you're so used to seeing a team, you just naturally assume that they're there all the time.
Yeah, and it seems like they are there all the time. But there's other good teams out there too. Sometimes they get in the way of your track to the state tournament. But everybody knows these two teams around the state. They're well known, and they've got good, solid programs and have had good, solid programs for many, many years. So it's another great matchup at this year's state tournament.
Lipan, I'm sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, I like the matchup. Looking forward to it.
Lipan did beat Nazareth finally this year in a non-district game. Of course, Lipan, the only team that has slowed down Nazareth in all of the 1A finals, even though they will be playing in 2A. Their last 2 games against Munster and Panhandle, they won it by a total of 8 points, a couple of games in the 30s. Martins Mill, meanwhile, you mentioned they beat undefeated Douglas. They barely survived their semifinal against Snook, a game that you and I thought maybe Martins Mill would have a little easier time in. You never want to say a state semifinal is a trap game, but from all appearances, it kind of looked like it based on the box score, Joe.
Yeah, well, hey, that happens in the playoffs sometimes because of what's at stake. Games can get close, teams can't score, and sometimes in girls basketball, the defense just dominates the offense. And so might have been a little bit of a case there in the Martins Mill and Snook game. But the idea though is to win and advance and get ready for that next round. And so Martin, here they are, Martins Mill for what you said, the 15th time. And so great matchup. Looking forward to watching it.
Yeah, and should Martins Mill win this one, this will be that would be their 7th state championship. It would tie them with Levelland and Waco Midway for the 5th most all time. So a team that's used to being there. Lipan only has 1 title, and it's kind of strange because you would figure Lipan and Amber Branson have been there so many times. We know the story about Amber giving birth during a regional tournament in Abilene way back about 10 years ago. And they've been there so long. It's going to be interesting to see that child that Amber had during the regional. She's going to be playing basketball pretty soon.
Yeah, that was a pretty tough girl that gave birth at that time of the year. And but she does a great job at Lipan. And you know, it's tough being a mother and being a coach. I mean, that's hats off to the people that can do that, because there's huge responsibilities at home. And then of course there's huge responsibilities at work with your team. And so that's pretty tough. She's got to have a great understanding husband and a great situation there. Yeah, I'm impressed. I think it's going to be a super game. And like I said, I think I slightly give the edge to Lipan.
Lipan with 7 seniors, while Martins Mill has 2. And again, it should be a really, really great game.
Yep.
Moving on to the 4A state championship game, Canyon taking on Hardin-Jefferson, a matchup a lot of us predicted. Of course, Joe, your son Tate, has now taken over the reins at Canyon. And just to let everybody know, we're going to do this from a neutral perspective. And Joe, I guess before we even get into the matchup, how do you stay neutral in this matchup? Because you won all those championships at Canyon. Tate's now trying to win his first at Canyon to go with a couple that he had at Walden. It's got to be hard being on one side, being a dad and being a Canyon fan, and on the other side, trying to look at it from a neutral perspective.
Well, that's a good question, but you know, I'm going to pull for my son, you know, and my former team. But I tell you, this Hardin-Jefferson team is a special team. They number one, I guess, all year long, 30-0, and they were averaging, I think, 93 points a game or something like that. So they are an incredible team. They'll be the favorite in this game. Like I said, number one all year long. But Canyon's in it. I mean, Canyon has a shot, and they've played a great schedule, and 29-1 maybe. And so you have in this one, you have number one versus number two in the state. And so you don't always have that. And so that makes it a great matchup. But I think for Canyon to win, things have got to go right. I mean, they've got to play, I don't know if flawless is a good word, but they've got to play at a high level. And Jefferson, just with gosh, their talent that they have, and they're well coached as well. And they, you know, girls teams score 93 points a game. I mean, we can't score 93 in a week, you know. So they're averaging that. And so that's pretty impressive that, you know, girls can score the ball with that clip, because you know, us and probably Frisco Liberty, we don't understand those high scoring games. And so anyway, great matchup, contrasting styles. Canyon's had two close games in the last two games, just barely got by Bridgeport. And then, like you said, Dallas Pinkston, it was a 2-point game. And just right down to the wire. Hardin-Jefferson really hasn't had too much competition this year. They just have kind of blown everybody out. Although I guess in the playoffs, there's been a couple of games that have been a little bit closer. But they are, you know, really talented.
Yeah, and you look at Hardin-Jefferson, they blew a lot of teams out. They had 122 in their regular season finale against Liberty, and then the playoffs after running through Bridge City, El Campo, and Silsbee, only beat China Spring by 10, 57-47, beat Waco La Vega by 7. And then Bernie, a team that I'm familiar with down here in the San Antonio area, they were only up by 4 at halftime before they put a big run on. And talking to some of the Bernie players after that game, they mentioned how Ashlyn Jackson, who's the Duke commit, they did a really good job kind of slowing her down, but Jefferson was able to do a great job with a big run in the third quarter. And speaking of Ashlyn Jackson, a Duke commit, she's only a junior. The last time Canyon was in 2017, your final state championship year, they had to go up against Charlie Collier of Barbers Hill in the semifinals. Collier's projected #1 pick in the WNBA draft. Is this kind of where, at least maybe you being maybe coach emeritus, so to speak, can talk to the players about how you guys had to slow down at Charlie Collier and try to equate that to having to slow down at Ashlyn Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, slow down is what you hope for. I mean, you can't stop a great player like either one of those two. And we maybe slowed Charlie down just a little bit, but I think she still got her 20 or a little bit more than that against us. But that game, we played a great game. I mean, and you have the superstar, but they have other good players, and Hardin-Jefferson has several other good players. So that's what makes it so tough. They have so many kids that can score. And if you have a superstar and that's it, then it's a little easier to defend that. But when you have basically 5 kids on the court that can score, that's difficult. And it looks like that's what Hardin-Jefferson has. And the Jackson kid just kind of makes it all go. And she's great player, point guard that's on like 6 foot tall and can pass as well, score, and she's got the whole thing. So that's a great weapon for them, but that's just one of several. So they're really good, really talented.
Yeah, and you look at Hardin-Jefferson, they have only 2 state championships, but they've run into some really tough teams in the finals. They lost in 1988, the year that Cheryl Swoops and Brownfield won the title. Brownfield beat them by 9 points. And in that game, Cheryl Swoops had 26 points. And then, of course, you were talking about how Canyon, this is their 20th appearance in the semis or beyond, looking for title number 28. They beat Hardin-Jefferson once upon a time for one of those state championships, Joe.
Well, Hardin-Jefferson actually beat Canyon.
Or Jefferson, I should say, beat Canyon in
1989. Yeah, I remember that game, double overtime. They had a kid named Boscia that was outstanding. And so, yeah, don't bring those heartbreak things back up, Gray, because, man,
then you should have won, Joe. I mean, I know it's been
we were trying. But they've had good girls basketball down there long. Of course, they've had good boys basketball with Charles Bright down there years ago. And so a lot of great athletes in that area, and they're well coached, and, just really a #1 type team. But like I said, Canyon is they're in the mix. They have a shot. They just need to play really well and probably keep the score below 90. I think that would be. I don't think Canyon can score 90. So I don't know. I don't want to predict on the first one to score how many points in this game, but for Canyon to have a chance, there's nothing in the 90s about it. So, but anyway, great matchup. Look forward to this, and #1 versus #2, and it's going to be a great contrast in styles, and it can go either way. Although, like I said, Hardin-Jefferson, they've had a great year, and they're very impressive, and they're deserving of the #1 ranking.
Yeah, teams are combined 59-1. And in fact, the last time Canyon lost a state finals game, you have to go all the way back to 1999 when Dallas Lincoln was the champion. Canyon winning titles. I'm going to do some quick math as we're on the air. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 straight wins in the state championship game. So Canyon's really dominated, and that may be Hardin-Jefferson has some history on their side, and well, so does Canyon, Joe.
Yeah, I think Hardin-Jefferson, the Jackson kids at junior, I believe they were at the state tournament their freshman year, her freshman year, and maybe they lost to Argyle.
That's correct.
So, so they've got some experience, and they've got some good young players too. Gosh, they got another freshman guard named Sneed that's really a big time player, and got some shooters, and so they kind of have the whole shooting shebang. They're really good. Yeah, Canyon's got to catch them on just a little bit of an off day, and like I said, Canyon's got to play well.
Yeah, Hardin-Jefferson lost to Argyle in 2019, and so a lot of history in this one. I'd love to stay here and chat about it, but we have one more game to preview. So let's move on now to the final matchup of the weekend, Class 6A. We'll have a first-time state champion no matter what as DeSoto takes on Cypress Creek. And part of the reason why we will is because for the first time in a while, Duncanville is not there. DeSoto beat Duncanville 3 times during the season, including the state quarterfinals. They had a brawl in one of the regular season games. Cypress Creek beat Converse-Judson using a 20-0 run in their state semifinal, a game that had 5 technical fouls called between Judson and Cypress Creek. So before we even get into the box score, I guess it may come down to which team, if either, can keep their patience.
Well, hey, I think maybe you got the 2 best teams in 6A this particular year. With DeSoto beating Duncanville 3 times, my goodness, who can ever do that? They've got to be really good. I've heard they've got several college prospects on their team, so they're really good. And then that Cypress Creek, 2 years in a row being undefeated during the regular season. They're knocking on the door. They obviously are really good too. They come out of that tough Houston area. DeSoto, though, out of that the Duncanville region. Gosh, this is 2 heavyweights here. This could be something special too as a game that we get to watch. As far as picking them, I think DeSoto, with the schedule as far as playing Duncanville and those type teams in their district, might have a little tougher schedule and seem to be playing really well. But Cypress Creek, man, what a run. I think 4 years ago we played Cypress Creek at the Mansfield tournament when these kids were 2 of these kids were freshmen. They had a pair of freshman guards back 4 years ago. And I remember saying to my assistant coach, said, I can't believe those are freshmen. they're incredible. So now those kids are seniors and dominating the Houston area, and 32-0 now. Yeah, I don't know. This, Greg, this game, I could go either way. I could see either team winning this game as well. I think you have 2 heavyweights right here. Now, DeSoto was maybe used to being on this stage a little bit with all their big games in the regionals and district play. Cy Creek, though, they were here last year, so I think that helps them a little bit and maybe know what to expect. But Cy Creek will have to bring a little better game than what they brought last year. They're going to have to really show up and play. And so I think it could go either way again. Who am I going to pick? I give a very slight edge to DeSoto, but it wouldn't surprise me at all that Cy Creek goes undefeated for the year.
And I remember Cy Creek had such the disappointment last year. They worked so hard to get all the way to the finals. They were down a player for that state championship game. Duncanville beat them by 16, a game that really wasn't even as close as the final score indicated. So there was a lot of disappointment there. They come in, as you mentioned, 32-0 after beating Converse-Judson, using a big 20-0 run in that semifinal game played at the Rolling Metropolis known as Goliad. And Goliad actually has a really good gym. As for DeSoto, 27-2, but they have not lost a game on the court to a Texas team all year. They lost to a team out of the Oklahoma City area on the northwest side of Oklahoma City early in the season. They also lost a game. I believe it was a virus forfeit to Cedar Hill in district. And other than that, they've blown it. They've run through everybody, beating Duncanville 3 times. They beat South Grand Prairie by 11 in the semifinals. They beat South Grand Prairie during the regular season. And DeSoto was there 2 years ago, and I watched them against Converse Judson when Judson finally broke the San Antonio drought without a state championship. They had a great freshman at the time, and they've got a strong junior class. And as we mentioned, these are 2 teams, I guess scrappy is kind of a cliche term, but this will be a scrappy game. And it's going to be interesting to see how the coaches are able to keep their players in check and how they're able to not let their players pick up a cheap foul or pick up even a cheap technical.
Yeah. Yeah. In a state championship team, in a state championship game setting, you have to maintain your poise. You both want to win, obviously. I don't think there's an edge there, but it's maintaining the poise and being able to execute what your team needs you to be able to do in a close game and on the big stage. And so that's, and when it comes down again, like we talked about in an earlier game, it could come down in the last few minutes, and who's gonna. I think high character kids win those close games a lot of times, but like I said earlier, it can be the ball bounces off the rim instead of into the rim, inside the hoop. The referee makes some type of call that changes the game. The bounces off somebody's foot. I mean, there's just so many different ways the game can change and the momentum can change in the last minute or 2 of a ball game. So, Greg, it looks like all 6 of these games could go right. I mean, all 6 of them have a chance to be great games. And I think, thanks for asking me to preview these, because I really admire all these teams are there. Obviously, they're all well coached, have great programs, and they're having a super season. And so, looking forward to watching these games this week, because I think we just have great games, great matchups, and I think we're going to see a lot of games that are close.
Yeah, there's not really a game you would look at on paper and say, boy, that could be a blowout. I'm not just saying that to be diplomatic or to be positive. I'm literally saying that because you have teams like Nazareth and Frisco Liberty and Canyon, Lipan, Martins Mill, teams that are used to being there all the time. We have Dodd City trying to avoid being the Buffalo Bills. You have teams that have had history in the past, like Brownfield and Hardin-Jefferson. So there's going to be something for everyone at the state championships on Wednesday and Thursday at the Alamodome. Make sure you get your tickets. And Joe, it's been a pleasure to be able to sit down with you and be able to talk about the matchups, first round, the semis, and the finals. And I guess the only thing left is to put the ball in the air and see how everything shakes out.
That's right. Talk is cheap. Let's watch them play. But thanks for having me on, Greg. I really enjoyed it. And I always love the state tournament time of year. It's fun, and I know it's a little different this season, but I know the teams are super excited and their communities are excited about them being in the championship game. So they've had great years, and it looks like a great Wednesday-Thursday matchup.
Joe, appreciate the time, and let's shuffle up and get them going.
There you go.
I'm Greg Sherman, Mr. Bowtie 1982 on YouTube and on Twitter. That's Joe Canyon, who does not wear a bow tie on YouTube or on Twitter, but looking forward to the great games. Thank you so much for watching.